what at the end of the day, what the citizens want to be able to ride down the street, not wheels fall off the car.
I agree 100%.
And we are looking at the most practical way to get that done. So that's what I.
But with all due respect, Ms. Owens, the thing is that every single piece of equipment that you mentioned doesn't address the issue of efficiently and effectively doing potholes in winters, not like this year, but the winter that we had last year and the winter that we had the year before. There were mild winters where if you had hot material, and you know that the hot material can't be produced in the wintertime because the plant shuts down.
Let me, with all due deference and respect, Mr. Anello, let me say this to you. I've worked for Public Works, for many years before I came here.
Okay, yeah.
And I know about infrastructure. I know about equipment. I've been to equipment shows and things like that. There are innovations. This winter was the worst winter we've had in years, and we are seeking to find more cost-effective as well as the appropriate equipment to use to repair our potholes and repair our infrastructure in the city. So there's nothing new under the sun. There's stuff out there.
The machine is new.
We can go out there and find those things and use that and see if it is applicable for usage in this city. So
I want to debate with your department head because let me tell you. Look. We researched too. I mean, you keep talking about research. You think we didn't do research? We did research, and we did go to Rochester.
No, I don't doubt that.
We did go to Rochester, and that's why we bought that piece of equipment.
Okay.
But anyway,
just to finish the discussion, Vince, I absolutely agree with you that hot patch during the wintertime when you're capable of putting it down, that would be the way to go. We wouldn't be the least bit afraid of going back in that direction if we found equipment that we thought would work for us.
That's all I wanted to hear.
No, there's not some point of pride like, no, we can't go back to
That's
doing something
all I
like that
wanted to
because somebody else made the decision and we didn't like it.
Mayor, that's all I wanted to hear.
No, we're
because
open to everything.
After you're done with all the research and everything, there's only one piece of equipment that does that, and that's that recycling machine. So I'm glad you're at least open to taking a second look.
We're open to everything.
Okay, that's good. Let's go to some of the questions, okay? One I know you can't answer because I think the assessor needs to answer this one. It's about a lady that put on Facebook about, she had her house was assessed, then she tore down the garage a week before the assessment came out and all of that, and now she's got to wait a whole other year to have the assessment be reflected in the assessment of the home. And I know that's the way the rules are.
There's a record date. I think it's in the month of March at some point, and then whoever owns the property on that date is the owner of tax record. Whatever the value of the property is on that date is the value. And I know that happens every year. People will come in the month of April, or one thing that happens, not for profits, like a church group will purchase a building and then they haven't completed the process of transferring ownership to the not-for-profit. They get a tax bill and they come in like, oh, there's been a mistake. It's like, well, it's kind of.
No, I know, and the dates are very important. And I just wanted to put it out there and know that the dates are very important. You concurred with that, and that's the way it is. The next question that we have is the question about the frozen water lines. And I'm sure you knew that was going to come up at some point because it's still a big concern. And,
we spent a lot of time dealing with it.
Both of my neighbors suffer the same fate, and we have a hose going to one of the neighbors' houses. But what can the city do about this? I mean, I know it's a water board problem, board problem, but it's an issue that you have to work with the water board.
Well, the first issue is what are your responsibilities as a homeowner, right? And just as we as homeowners, we own a lot of stuff we don't think of as being our property, including our water line, right? Out to a point, we're responsible for maintenance of our water lines out to where they join the main, not even just to the box that's located there in the the right of way, but out to the main. And so when you have a really wicked winter like this, with the frost extending further down into the ground, even services that may never have had a problem in the past, they've been there forever, haven't been changed or whatever, could experience a difficulty. And it's your responsibility as homeowner to address that, either by trying to get somebody out there to fix it using one method or another, a steam method or electric method, or by making certain that you have temporary service hooked up until it's such a time as Mother Nature takes care of the problem, and then you just hope it doesn't repeat itself year after year because our climate changed, which is the thing that terrifies me, right? But we had a different situation this year in one area where we had people that were calling in contractors trying to deal with the problem of frozen water lines themselves, and yet even after they had paid considerable amounts for the service, there was still no water coming through the system. And this area, this cluster, then began to expand, right? And at that point, we felt like we needed to intervene in some way, shape, or form in order to prevent the whole neighborhood from losing water service. If at some point you can't get the service restored to these people's houses, code enforcement is going to come and tell them, sorry, you can't live here anymore. You can't live in a house with no running water, right?
Because it becomes a health issue.
Right, exactly, right? So, we felt like we needed to intervene there. Now we have an engineering firm that's under contract to the city. They weren't involved in the 72nd Street road reconstruction at all themselves, right? They came in after that, and we've got them looking at the question: was there something that happened to that cluster of houses on 72nd Street that explains why all of them started losing water service all at the same time? And what I can report back to you so far is that their attempts to find an easy answer, the answer's not easy.
No.
There were some theories that have been proposed that were kind of pretty obvious things. They've looked at that stuff and have found that evidence that suggests that it's not the case. So whatever this is, it's complicated. And we're trying also to look at other places where road reconstruction projects have been done to see if there's something about the specs, the method of construction, the design, whatever it is, that might be causing a problem like this. And the one thing we know is when you have a winter like this, and bad things are going to happen. I was reading a story in the paper this morning about baseball diamonds in the northern cities in professional baseball. They're trying to figure out what the heck are we going to do for opening day. There's 30 inches of permafrost under the infield. So it's things have been tough all over. That's not much of a solace to somebody if they've been going several weeks without water or with a temporary water hookup. But we're on it. There's nothing that we can do about anything that we found as an engineering solution to this until the weather changes, obviously. But we've got professional engineers that don't have a dog in the fight yet, looking at the question, trying to figure out, is there some systemic issue here other than the fact that we had a really, really cold winter? And then if you start, considering, and one of the climate theories that people are kicking around out there, including some scientists at the State University, is that as the really super cold area at the North Pole is breaking up, a lot of that cold air is finding its way further south than it traditionally did, which means while the rest of the world is getting warmer, we might be getting colder here over the next several years. And when you start talking about changes in things that are built into your building codes, how deep do you bury water lines, or how big
those may have to be changed.
What's the relationship between the size of your gutters and your downspouts and your combined sewer lines and this kind of stuff? That's going to be hard and expensive to change if we face something that's of a longer duration.
And people have to understand, too, some of these houses are 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, and maybe more in some cases. The water line, where it was put in that long ago, that's where it is. And if it's freezing now, it has nothing to do with anything that was done in the last 20, 30 years, because that's where the water line was. So it is a combination of answers, and to find a quick answer is not that, might not be that satisfactory. People.
Well, there was a thought. That there might be something involved with the fact there was some streets that had multiple houses that lost their water service had road reconstruction projects done, right? So there was a thought, okay, maybe that's a common factor. When we looked at that, the construction company came back and they reported, well, we were kind of hoping for an easy answer. That's not what we found. They found counter examples, oftentimes very nearby, of places that had the same set of specs, or even that where the specs weren't as stringent, right? That had not suffered any water line freeze-ups, right? So
so it's not going to be one simple, easy answer that everybody's going to be happy with. Caller, you're on.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for being on the show today. And I know you have a very difficult job, and I wish you well in your endeavors.
Well, thank you.
My question is this: how much is the average health care cost of every employee in the city?
I don't want to take a guess and get that wrong. We usually look at the family coverage, but it's in the high teens for family.
So it's about $15,000.
A little bit
it's
more.
more.
A little
It's
bit more
more.
than that. Yes.
It's more. I want to say 18
Okay.
for family,
Right.
but I don't want to, again, at budget time, we know those numbers by heart. Believe me, it's like you feel like you got it.
But it is around 17, 18,000.
Yeah, something like 17 or $18,000.
I want to make my point, please. That it's
Yep.
I read about other areas of the country in which the officials in that area gave or assigned a certain amount of money to the employees to go out and buy their health care.
Right, it's called cafeteria plan.
Yeah.
Right. But you have the Affordable Care Act now, which enables each individual, if they have a certain amount that they earn, to get a subsidy that helps them pay for a better insurance policy in most cases. There's 3 different plans in the Affordable Care Act. Have you ever looked into the fact that your employees could go out and buy that insurance and save you a lot of money?
Yeah, our health insurance is a contractual benefit, right?
Right.
So if we were to ask, this would be something where we would have to work out with employees. Our employees, when they can do something to help us, reduce our costs by availing themselves of other ways of paying for healthcare treatment, they've actually been pretty good about doing that. Forever Blue, right, is the
Yes.
thing that we're working on now, right? Where, I get periodically, agreements that come across my desk I have to sign off on, where our employees, with coaching and counseling for us, are accessing benefits in ways that reduce the cost to the city, and because that makes it easier for us to keep them on the rolls, going forward. It's a mutual benefit to both of us.
Right. There's a big
Yes,
difference.
there-
There's a big
I have
difference.
another question for
There-
you.
there's a big
Do you
difference.
have any veterans employed in your departments?
Yes, we have veterans.
Sure.
Well, don't you realize that these veterans can go to Veterans
I-
Hospital and get their health care for
I-
free?
Again, you have to understand, there's a big difference between employers they have union contracts and employers that don't. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of those things are contractual benefits.
Right.
And again, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. People are so nervous about giving up a benefit that
Right.
they've got, right? That's why you have to have healthcare buyouts, right? Because if you have two people in the family that both qualify for health insurance, to get one of the two of them to say, no, thank you, you got to give them something
Right.
because they feel like, what if I give up, it looks like they're the same coverage, but what if I make a mistake and give up the one that would have covered the condition that somebody in my family develops in the future? So those are all things that can be negotiated. They have to be cooperatively done through the collective bargaining
Right.
process. And
And that's why it needs to be addressed on a regular basis. Caller, you're on.
Vincent.
Jackie, where you been? Everybody's asking about you.
Everybody knows where I'm in Our Lady of Peace.
No, listen. Tom checked that out, and they wouldn't tell him that you were there.
Well, I got news for you. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks in ICU, and I came over here last Monday, and I've been here ever since.
Okay, well, you're going to have a bunch of visitors because everybody's asking about
Well, I
you.
hope you all come and see me. I'm in room 140.
Okay, we'll be there. But listen, you sounding pretty good.
Well, honey, I'm trying to get the hell out of here.
Okay, I'll bring the getaway car. How's that?
Fine. That's for sure. I'm ready to run away.
Okay.
Okay, come and see me.
No, I will. Thank you, Jackie.
Okay.
I'm glad you're
All right.
feeling better. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
so much for HIPAA.
Take care. Now that Western New York knows where Jackie's at. Caller, you on.
Well, good morning, Mayors.
Good morning. Good
Morning.
morning.
Hey, it's Jason Zona. How are you?
Good.
Hey, Jason,
good.
how you doing?
You know what? I'm hoping you can clarify something for us. I'm sure you followed our county legislative meeting Tuesday night, where our minority leader came under ridiculous attack by one of our new legislators. And I was wondering if you could clarify this and explain Dennis's position, maybe put a lot of this to rest.
Actually, I got a robocall at home last night or sometime before I got home last night.
County Republicans, very classy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, I'm a Democrat, obviously, and I, but feel like I've got strong Republican support here in the city when I run for office, but when I hear a robo-dialer and it's paid for by the county Republican Party, that kind of, puts an asterisk next to the information that's included in there. But this, I hesitate to even repeat these allegations, but somehow there was this idea that Dennis Virtuoso and I have conspired to increase, his pay in order to pad his pension for retirement, right? And the suggestion here is that there was something different that was done with Dennis Virtuoso than with his predecessor in terms of the way that they're compensated. And that's not true, right? It is true that Dennis basically does two jobs, right? He's the chief code enforcement officer for the city. That's a civil service position, right? When he has to be called out after hours because of a fire where you might have an emergency demo, or if we're looking at condemnation of a drug house or whatever, if we have a Zoom team out on the weekends, he does get overtime, right? Because it's contractual. As a civil service union employee, he gets that overtime. And then he serves as the director, right? The guy that runs the department day to day for an $8,000 stipend that he gets on top of his salary. So his base salary is, I think, something like $68,000. He gets $8,000 on top of that for serving as the director of the department. His predecessor got $65,000, but that was back in 2009, right? So allowing for inflation, making roughly the same amount. And he got $8,000, right? The dentist has been working a 40-hour work week, whereas his predecessor worked a 35-hour work week. So, as somebody who goes out periodically when we have issues out there in the middle of the night, bad fires where you think there might be an emergency demo or whatever, I can tell you Dennis Virtuoso is a really, really hard-working guy. I'm really thrilled with the job that he's doing. We're always striving to do things better. There are tax for resources in code enforcement. We don't have as many code enforcement officers as we like, but I don't know. This is a politically motivated attack. I feel bad because I feel like this is, as much an attack on me, really, as it is on Dennis, if he were not working for...
right in the resolution.
Yeah, if he wasn't working for me and for the city of Niagara Falls, and maybe he wouldn't be getting attacked in this way. But the way that I look at this, by having one person do both jobs, dating back to the Elia administration, I think, right?
Well, with Elia, the director was Ashok Kapoor,
yeah.
And that's how that was handled. There were some changes made early in 2004, and then there were some other changes made. But
to correct this, if we follow the way the sponsor of this resolution, who happens to be from North Tonawanda, mind you, that if we did it this way, we would have to hire a new director of code enforcement, which would add about $100,000 in cost to the budget.
Well, probably 80,000 odd, and you'd have to have a salary higher than the highest paid employee, so you'd have to be somewhere in the 80s with the salary plus benefits.
Right.
So yes, and then
us that we're speaking right here would have our property taxes raised to appease the political ambitions of a sponsor of a resolution.
Well, it's one of the things that's kind of galling about this is that these are decisions that are made by the city government here, right? The mayor, the city administrator, the city council. This is our internal affairs, right? The way that we structure our budgets and how we pay people for the work that they do here. And I don't try to tell them how to do that in the county, and I certainly don't try to tell people how to do that in North Tonawanda. And it's kind of, like I say, it's kind of galling to have people who don't know anything about it making all these different accusations about the way we're doing things.
That was what was most offensive to me about it, is not just as a legislator that works closely with Dennis and knows the accusations are false, but as a taxpayer of Niagara Falls, I'm being told my taxes should go up to play political games. I'm glad you were able to clarify.
Yeah, this is one of those things. We're cheaping it out. Would I like to have another person? You betcha. Okay, but do we have the ability to fund that right now? That's what you'd have to do. You'd have to create.
It falls under the consolidation and reducing costs by the government we've talked about.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what happened at the beginning of this thing, and then all of us that have been mayor since are looking at it. It's like, geez, do you want to throw in another $80,000 to $100,000 to address it, and so far, all of us have said, no, thank you, so.
But again, Jason, what you have to understand, though, different administrations have handled this differently. And again, as I mentioned earlier, at one point, the city engineer was also the director of inspections. Now, and the reason I'm making that point is that, it was changed, and it was changed during my administration. And for a while, we didn't have a city engineer because I had to let go of the city engineer at the time. And, during the time that we didn't have a city engineer, we had a private engineering firm taking care of the stamp, for the PE when it came to projects that the city was doing, like streets and whatever. So what I'm getting at is we shouldn't just, because I know this is going to be challenged, okay? And I hope that it gets cleared up, and I hope someday that the senator, the assemblyman, the mayor, the council, the legislators all can sit at the same table. I'll buy a light lunch for it if I have to. But the point is, I think they all should come together. But there have been different ways of handling this, and I think what happens during the course of conversations, a lot of facts from a lot of different scenarios get put together, okay? And that's where the misunderstanding comes from, and I believe that that's a disservice to the taxpayers. So hopefully all this will get cleared
Well,
up.
this wasn't a misunderstanding. This.
I'm trying to be nice,
Dennis
Jason.
Virtuoso. Well, I'm not going to be. If it was Dennis, if the name Dennis Virtuoso wasn't on it, this wouldn't have never.
Well,
went on.
here's the other thing, is I thought I read in the Buffalo News that the individual making these accusations had like an outstanding, was it the sales tax, $8,000 or
what I
something
mean?
that the person owed?
Mayor, it's like a comedy show. But I'll let you get to more.
Well, I thought if you lived in a glass house, you should avoid throwing rocks, that's.
You would think.
Or check your taxes.
Yeah, at least check and make sure you paid your taxes before you start attacking people.
All right, thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. I think it's unfortunate that some of these things just go as far as they do. I mean, it's just my gut feeling. Caller, you're on.
Hey, Vince, how you doing?
Good, good.
What's the status of putting on a permanent engineer for the city of Niagara Falls?
There's a- There's a search underway, and I think we're interviewing candidates starting maybe
Starting next week.
next week. And we got a fair number of applications, so we're pretty encouraged by that. And we've got a bunch of people who we didn't ask permission to use their names, but we've got a bunch of respected people in the field who've agreed to serve on a committee to make a recommendation.
And in this particular issue, it's further complicated by the fact that the charter says that when necessary, you can give an exemption for the residency requirement. And I wish that we would pay attention to that, because, believe me, it's not that simple to find an engineer,
Right.
a civil engineer especially. It doesn't have to be a civil engineer, but an engineer, and hopefully with civil engineering experience, to move. Some of them live in, I know of an engineer that lived in Wheatfield. How do you expect him to, a house in Wheatfield, just pick up everything to move into a house in Niagara Falls? It just doesn't make any
Now,
sense.
how do you go about doing that, Mayor? Like,
You just ask the council for permission.
Well, we're committed to trying to hire department heads wherever possible that are residents of the city or that are willing to become residents of the city. So that's where we're going to start with this thing. And let's see, where we end up with it. And again, that's why you put people on something like this that are professional engineers, including one very prominent professional engineer who is a resident to the city of Niagara Falls, unfortunately not available for the position.
Well,
right?
there we go.
Yeah. But so when to look at their recommendation on this, right? And let's see. It is one of the problems here when you had people in the position for a long period of time and the position was relatively stable. You could go to somebody and say, look, this isn't a political position. You come in here, you keep your nose clean, you do a
Right.
good job. You're probably going to be here for multiple administrations, right?
Right.
But it's now, I think it's difficult because the position, there's been some controversy about it at various points here. We've had 3 people in and out. One of them, was basically let go over the residency requirement, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So we've had people in and out of the position. It makes it more difficult to make that argument. Like, it's safe to move here because you'll be in this job for 20 years or whatever. I would be skeptical about that claim if I were a candidate.
Could I give you an idea?
Sure.
Now, my nephew went to RIT. He's become an engineer, and he graduates this year. He took a job in Washington D.C. But he's been working with the town of Penfield and they recruited engineers there, students, to do work for them.
Right.
I know. Couldn't the city do something like that maybe with UB to get some of these students in here to do the hands-on work with the town and the students?
It's, that is something that we've looked at. There are two issues that come up when you look at that. First, the city engineer has to have a New York PE. So you either have
Right.
to have the PE, New York PE in hand, or be able to transfer it from another state where you have the PE in order to meet the charter requirement, right? And there's a reason for that. When we don't have a city engineer, we have to go out and basically hire somebody to review materials like stormwater permits, for example, right, are being reviewed now
Right.
by a contractor because we don't have somebody in-house that can do it. The other piece of it is that, the person who's the city engineer, they're heading up a department that's got a lot of senior people in it, and they have to supervise those people, right? And so they've got to be a department head, right? And so they have to have professional expertise, but they also have to have the management skills. And somebody coming new out of college, they might be a hot shot, right? And they might even have just completed their PE. But what's the likelihood of them being able to oversee the day-to-day operations of a department that's got multiple people that have worked 20, 25 years or even longer in some cases, the management side of it is a part of the challenge too.
Okay.
What he was doing was still going to school, but he was getting a lot of practical experience.
He was interning.
Yeah, he was an intern, right?
Right, an intern. I think that's
Yep.
a great idea for the city guys involved. You never know. You might be able to land and want to come in and work for the city.
That's right.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
One more question, Mayor. 27th Street, please.
Okay, we got that one. Thanks a lot. We're right up against the clock. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And I want to take a second to just thank the mayor and the administrator for being on the program. I think the people really appreciate it. I still didn't make it to all the questions that I had on Facebook, but they're short questions, and I'll ask the mayor just to, give me a quick answer, even if it's after the show, so I can post them on Facebook.
We're going to mill 27th Street. There's brick underneath there. We're going to mill it and look and see what we got underneath. Maybe the brick is better than what we've got sitting on top of it.
That's
and
right.
A better ride while we're figuring out what to do with it.
Right, you might find that that's true, and the questions were about Hamister and...
Hamister thing is going forward. There's a bunch of lawyerly work getting done. Don't expect them to break ground as soon as the weather changes. They
Right.
got too much we had like a 120-day delay that's costing us, right? So, but they're going to get to work later on during this building season. So,
Thanks again. Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you very much, Ms. Owens.
thank you. Always a pleasure.